Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the White House Rural Council meeting for this afternoon, June 9th, 2014. I want to also welcome everyone, not just in this room, but watching from around the country via the web on watch parties. We know that there are at least ones happening in almost every region of the U.S. this afternoon. In Southeast Tennessee, the development district there, we'd like to thank Mayor Bobby Collier and Mayor Winky Cagle for hosting watch parties and their partners in Southeast Tennessee. Also, Elizabeth Spellman and her partners at the West Virginia Food and Farm Coalition are also tuning in from West Virginia. So we welcome all those folks who are going to participate here. This is a unique meeting for the White House Rural Council. I just wanted to note that today marks the 3rd anniversary since President Obama signed the executive order creating the White House Rural Council. So on June 9th, 2011, the President entrusted his cabinet, he actually named every member of the cabinet to the White House Rural Council, to seek economic opportunities and improvements in quality of life and economic viability, stimulate new jobs in rural areas. So not only by creating the council and setting the cabinet members as being part of the council, the President entrusted the Secretary of Agriculture, Tom Vilsack, with being the chair of that council. And I just wanted to note that in 3 years' time, the administration has announced more than 20 policy initiatives that have spanned the gamut from increasing in economic investment in rural capital through the major financial agencies of the U.S. government, but many other changes such as increasing the number of doctors and hospitals in rural areas, basically entrusting that bio-preferred products would be a priority for the federal government in purchasing. So really more than 20 policy announcements that just span the gamut of all the authorities of the executive branch. So as I turn it over to our chairman, the President turned the keys of this council over to him 3 years ago to be the quarterback for the administration in rural America. And I just want to applaud you, Mr. Secretary, for all the work that you've done. I know the folks around this room would also like to mark your 3 years with thank you. All right, thanks.
Well, Doug, thanks very much. Actually, the credit really belongs to the folks around the room, and I really appreciate Secretary Fox in particular being here today as a colleague. We have had tremendous support from all of the cabinet agencies who have been engaged in the Rural Council. Doug, I want to thank you for your assistance and help in helping to staff this. You've really been, I'm not sure if I'm the quarterback, I guess you must be the running back or the guy I hand the ball to, but you've just done a fabulous job getting these policy initiatives launched, and it really does make a difference, folks. And I've got about 10 minutes to spend with you today, and obviously we're going to spend a lot of time talking about local foods in local places, but I want to give you a context for why this is important. Rural America is important to all of the country. It is the source of most of the food that we consume. It's a good deal of the water that we consume and drink and use in our farms and our homes and our businesses is impacted and affected by what happens in rural areas. It's the source of a good deal of the domestically produced energy that we rely on to energize and fuel our homes and businesses and our economy. It is also a disproportionate number of families who serve in the military come from small towns and rural areas. It represents 15% of America's population, but somewhere between 35 and 40% of America's military calls rural America home. So it's an important place for the United States, for the entire country. And the President was correct in focusing time, attention on rural America because the economy in rural America over the last several decades has struggled. As we deal with ever increasing efficiency on the farm, we are seeing an aging and in some cases a declining population in rural areas. So it was important and it was necessary for an administration to focus specific time and attention and resources on rebuilding that rural economy. And that brings us here today. Now, we are creating in part a new natural resource economy. Production, agriculture, and exports obviously critically important, but using conservation, creating new opportunities for outdoor recreation, more hunting and fishing and biking, hiking opportunities tied to conservation. We're really focused on the bioeconomy, the ability to take what we grow and raise in these rural areas and convert it into a wide variety of fuels and materials and energy sources that create job opportunities. But one of the areas that has received a lot of attention in this administration is the opportunity to basically create more local and regional food systems, the ability to connect our food production with markets that are local, that are right next door, And this administration has focused a lot of attention for a number of reasons. We can expand market opportunities. There's no question about that. We've seen an explosion of farmers markets in the last several years, a 74% increase since the president took office. And these farmers markets are not only great market opportunities for local production, but they're also good community building locations. I know from my own state of Iowa, the state has a capital city, Des Moines, farmers market that now has grown to tens of thousands of people every Saturday. It's an amazing opportunity for people to come together and really to have a sense of community. We've created an opportunity to aggregate locally and regionally produced food in what we call food hubs. There's been a 65% increase in the number of food hubs since this administration took office. And we know that when you aggregate and you process food in a consistent way, you create additional market opportunities. We're also trying to link our schools. America's got over 100,000 school districts in this country, and it's an opportunity for us to link specifically and directly with those schools. An opportunity for the food that is fed to our students during breakfast and lunch to be locally produced and locally sourced. We've had a farm-to-school program at USDA that has funded 71 different projects in 42 states. It's now nearly a $400 million enterprise, and local and regional food systems are collectively about a $7 billion enterprise. So this opportunity to link schools and locally produced food is very significant. We recently did a survey of school districts around the country, and literally thousands of schools are interested in having that closer connection with locally produced food. So it's a market opportunity. It obviously is an income opportunity for small and mid-sized farming operations, and it also helps to expand jobs. We know, for example, from a recent Michigan State study that food hubs generally do about $4 million in sales on average and create 20 jobs. And these are good paying jobs that oftentimes are located in rural areas. So it's a job creator, it's an income producer, it's a community builder. And that's why today, with the assistance and help of sister agencies like the Environmental Protection Agency, the Department of Transportation, and two regional commissions, the Appalachian Regional Commission and the Delta Regional Commission, we're launching today through the Rural Council our Local Foods, Local Places initiative. We've pulled resources together from these commissions and from these agencies and departments with the express purpose of creating opportunities to provide technical assistance that will allow folks to learn more about the various programs that are available in the federal government to help and to assist in the development of local and regional food systems. At USDA, we have a wide variety of programs. We have a business and industry loan program that provides resources for the construction of food hubs. We have a value-added producer grant program and a farmers market promotion program and a local food promotion program recently funded by the new Farm Bill that creates millions of dollars of opportunities to expand market. We have a specialty crop block grant program which basically provides resources to states to assist in the development of these markets and these opportunities. So this is a tremendous opportunity that we want people to take full and complete advantage of. And it's an opportunity for us to expand the work of the Rural Council. Because when you create these new opportunities for farmers, you repopulate rural communities. You help young entrepreneurs and innovators populate rural communities. When you create a food hub, you create good paying jobs, which help to support other local businesses in the area. When you create an opportunity for greater linkage between students and their and locally produced food, you're also creating a better awareness on the part of young people about where their food comes from, and perhaps a greater appreciation for those who produce the food for us in this country. We are blessed in this country. We have extraordinarily productive farmers, both large and small. And because of that, we are a food secure nation, which means that essentially we don't really have to depend on hardly anybody for the food that feeds our people. Very, very few countries in the world today have that blessing and that opportunity. So this is a chance for us through our Local Foods, Local Places initiative to make sure that technical assistance is there to take full advantage of the Know Your Farmer, Know Your Food website at USDA, for example, that lists over 50 different programs that can be utilized to help facilitate and grow a local and regional food system. So I'm really pleased that this is one of the projects that we essentially are celebrating our 3rd anniversary with. I appreciate the work and the help and the assistance of the sister agencies and departments, and especially the regional commissions. They've been great partners with us. And I think during the course of today, you're going to learn a little bit more about what our partners are going to do in terms of this initiative. We'll also have an opportunity, I think, to hear from some of the successful local markets and the community building opportunities that they create in cities and suburbs and small communities, and then hopefully we'll have an opportunity for questions and answers. So again, looking very much forward to the conversation, but this is a huge opportunity which we have identified as one of the 4 principal strategies for sort of rebuilding the rural economy. And when we do, it's going to lead to a great deal more investment in the rural economy. So with that, I'll turn it back to you, Doug.
Great. Thank you, Secretary Vilsack. The Secretary mentioned local foods, local places. We have the chance to hear from a few of the local sponsors and partners who are working on this initiative. And I just want to say, when we started working on the White House Rural Council, I don't think we realized the untapped potential and the tremendous leverage that our regional commissions would provide us, both the Appalachian Regional Commission, the Mississippi Delta Regional Authority, and also the Denali Commission. I want to first turn to Earl Gull, who is our federal co-chair of the Appalachian Regional Commission. Just last week, Earl's team helped us to run and launch the first Made in Rural America initiative. This was, we're going to have 5 regional forums around the U.S. Earl's team was first out of the gun, did a tremendous job with that. We're going to model a lot of our other efforts off of what his team did. But Earl, we'd like you to make a few remarks about this initiative.
Thank you, Doug. Thank you, Mr. Secretary. We really appreciate the opportunity to actually start the conversation on exports. It's really amazing what you can do when you've got a great staff to figure out things and put together these sessions. We're also very excited and very appreciative of this next new initiative. As you know, over the last couple of years, we've piloted this program prior to this, and currently we have about 9 communities out working, providing technical assistance through the EPA folks. And I've had the opportunity to visit 8 of those 9 communities over the last few months. And I think it's fair to say that within each one of those communities, there's some new level of excitement, there's some new level of thoughtfulness to go into what challenges and what opportunities they have. Last week I was in Pikeville, Tennessee, and the message that came from Pikeville was that as they proceeded through their planning process, what surprised them the most, what was really a pleasant surprise, was the engagement of the FFA group and their coming to the table and their participation in the whole activity and the work that's going on. So we're very excited about this. You know, this is really a kind of simple idea. Everybody has a downtown and everybody has a food economy. And the challenge, the opportunity that we have is how do we leverage those 2 activities? How do we put them together so that they benefit each other and they help the community grow? Over the last year, the ARC has really been involved in a rather extended conversation with our communities about food systems. We've been to 12 of the 13 states. We've met with over 1,000 folks, visited about 200 sites, all focused on the local food economy and all aspects related to the local food economy. And the message and the story really comes down to 3 points. Local food economy is about entrepreneurship. It doesn't matter if it's the local high school, if it's the aggregator, if it's the people who are adding value to their product, or the folks trying to export. It's all entrepreneurs putting together their best ideas and bringing energy and imagination to the table to get a job done to create additional wealth and additional income for their community. The second is that in our region, where we're often characterized as an aging population, local foods are being driven by folks under the age of 40. That is a really fascinating experience to visit these towns and to see and meet individuals who are really the driving forces of local foods. And it is a whole new generation. They're taking their skill sets that their grandparents had, they're adding technology to it, and they're bringing them to the table today. So it's a very exciting thing. And the third thing I would say is we're just at the start. This is just at the beginning part of this market that has incredible opportunities to expand and to grow and to really, for us, for the Appalachian communities, to help contribute to the important transition of the Appalachian economy. So we're very grateful, we're very appreciative of the fact that the President had the forethought of establishing the White House Rural Council, and that you also, in establishing the council, include the Appalachian Regional Commission, because it has provided us incredible opportunities to network, to seek other resources, and to be creative in the way we interact with our communities and the federal government. So, Doug, thank you for all your leadership. Mr. Secretary, thank you for all your support over the last 3 years.
Great. Thank you, Earl. Appreciate that. And having the local partner is key. We also have to have the federal agencies that have resources and come to the table with the help and the ideas. So we're going to turn to the Deputy Administrator of the Environmental Protection Agency, who's joined us, Bob Perciasepe, to make some remarks about the local foods, local places initiative as well.
I apologize for walking in late. What was the subject? I'm sorry. I really,
So,
yes.
Bob, we'll actually come back to you in a moment.
Okay.
I'm going to go
Thank you.
to Chris Matsengill from the Delta Regional Authority, who's
Regional,
another local
right.
partner down in the Delta on this initiative as well. Chris.
Thank you, Doug, very much.
That was very gracious of you. Thank you.
Well, good morning, everyone, and it's great to be here. Mr. Secretary, thank you for your leadership, not only for the country, but for the White House Rural Council. The Delta Regional Authority, 252 counties and parishes, 8 states that make up about 10 million people. And let me just echo the chairman's remarks about how excited we were when the president stepped up and wanted to create an entity like this, to have the leadership of the Secretary of Agriculture, and particularly you, Secretary Vilsack, because of your history, where you come from, and understanding the challenges that rural America faces. I want to start by just doing a couple of things. Real quickly, we are new to this partnership, and I can tell you that we're very excited about this. We're excited about seeing the progress that has been made on this effort between USDA and EPA and our friends at ARC. They have proven the impact that a program like this can have, and we're glad to shepherd this in our part of the region. We do believe that this will help support local economies. I come from an economic development background, and I'll tell you that economic development is not a one-size-fits-all. And we've been engaging in similar types of activities, projects from food technology innovation incubators in New Orleans to a program in East Arkansas where we're increasing the value chain of locally grown food, putting it into the economy in stronger ways. The other part of this, from our perspective, particularly when you look at the Delta Regional Authority, and we've clearly had a history of having agriculture as a big part of our economy. It still is a big part of our economy. And having an opportunity to grow that economy in even bigger ways is a natural extension of what we do at the DRA. This program, we believe, is a natural extension of that, particularly in 2 areas. Entrepreneurship, as you heard from Chairman Gull, is a significant opportunity from this initiative. We spend a lot of time thinking about how we can grow small businesses, how we can create an ecosystem for entrepreneurship. This program will help us continue that effort. Secondly, we believe that this has a significant impact on workforce development and workforce training opportunities. We know that as a critical component of having a strong economic development strategy is having a strong, well-trained pipeline of educated workers. This program will help link those 2 together. Those are 2 big pieces we believe this program will continue to do. So we're proud to offer up our resources, to partner with our federal stakeholders and offer up this technical assistance, and we look forward to seeing those positive results in our part of the country, Mr. Secretary. Doug, thank you for allowing us to be a part.
Thank you, Chris, and thank you. I really appreciate all of your work locally there to help us with this initiative. With that, and I know we all are in 1,000 meetings a day and running, and that's what the president expects of us, is to be going as hard as we can. And Bob, I really appreciate you coming in. I know I kind of jumped you there on the short change, so.
Well, my fault. Certainly, I'm very familiar with the Local Foods and Local Places program that we're partnering up here. I think combined, the federal agencies are putting over $650,000 into this partnership. And believe it or not, being somebody who's grown up in a town of 900 people, I know how important Main Street is to the local economy and where is the traditional gathering place of rural America. And certainly was no strange place to me as a youngster. So the idea of being able to bring these food markets to those local locations and to revitalize and help revitalize downtowns is essential to our sustainable community work that we're doing, as well as the rural economies in the areas that we're focusing on in Appalachia and the Delta region. So we're excited to be a partner. We think that this is a a great opportunity and a great program for building stronger local economies and boosting the economy of local food providers and producers. This is another key and important thing. Obviously, the closer you are to your food, the more environmentally and economically efficient you're going to be. So thank you for the opportunity to lend our support and partnership to this program.
Thank you, Administrator Perciasepi. We have, really the front of the dais here, not just two members of the President's Cabinet and two secretaries, but two former mayors, and we want to recognize a really important member of that team who brings incredible background to this topic, because none of this can work unless you have adequate infrastructure and a way to move product around. None of this works unless you've got local know-how. So we're really pleased to have Secretary Anthony Foxx with us, who's the Secretary of Transportation for the Obama administration. He was the mayor of Charlotte, North Carolina from 2009 to 2013. Worked heavily on job creation, but also on really extending the transportation linkages in the Charlotte metropolitan area. Not just building new roads and bridges, but bicycle and pedestrian facilities, expanding the Charlotte International Airport to become the 6th busiest in the world. So Secretary Foxx, we couldn't be happier to have you with us here this afternoon.
Thank you, Doug, and thank all of you for being here. Doug, that is one killer beard. If I could grow one, I would do it. I just, I don't have the genes, but I want to thank you, Secretary Vilsack, and to Bob Perciasepi and Earl and Chris. I want to thank you for your leadership as well. John F. Kennedy explained the economic challenges that our rural communities face, and he put it very succinctly. He said, the farmer is the only person in our economy who buys everything retail, sells everything wholesale, and pays freight both ways. I think that really put it out there in a very succinct way. And it's one of the reasons why we at USDOT are very excited by this partnership and the opportunity to be part of this technical assistance to rural communities as we try to find these linkages, because frankly, how things get from one place to another can make the difference between on-time delivery, delivery where it's most needed, or not. And I come to this issue much like Bob, with a perspective that's very personal to this. I grew up in a city, Charlotte. It was a small city, but a city at the time. And I watched as my grandparents would drive sometimes miles past the local convenience stores where you could buy more easily a potato chip than you could a fresh piece of fruit, to get the fresh fruits and vegetables that they needed to sustain our family. And that experience has stayed with me as we've thought about this issue of food deserts across our country. What's interesting, and what I think this initiative is really going to help us tease out, is that in many cases, the food is within the region. It's just not finding its way to where the deserts are. And if we can develop an even stronger ecosystem to support demand matching supply, we will have a trifecta of benefits, economic benefits on both ends, rural communities as well as in some of these population centers. We'll have benefits in terms of the environment, because instead of a 100-mile trip from farm to market, if it can be done within a region, you're going to save on fuel and impacts to the environment. And then there are health benefits to folks having fresh food. So from our standpoint at USDOT, we see this as a very critical extension of our work. And I'll end with one postscript, which is that our involvement in this comes at a time when our country is struggling to figure out how to deal with our infrastructure challenges. And too often, those challenges are almost put in the context of urban versus rural. But from my vantage point, the reality is that we have got to start a conversation in this country about regions. Regions link rural communities, suburban communities, and urban communities together. And if we are putting our infrastructure investments into regions, helping to grow and strengthen those economies, we're going to be a stronger country. And that's what the Grow America Act is, the bill the President and I put out to try to strengthen our infrastructure system is all about. It's about creating these linkages within regions. And so without any further elaboration on that, I want to say to you, thank you for this effort. I think the proof will be in the pudding, but we're going to all put our shoulders to the wheel and get some great things done for the country. Thank you.
Thank you, Secretary Fox, and that couldn't have been a better segue into our next speaker, who's going to speak about that urban-rural linkage. Again, it's not a competition, it's a way to work together to everyone's benefit. Dan Carmody with the Eastern Market Corporation in Detroit. Dan has more than 30 years' experience in placemaking. He's been in Rock Island, Fort Wayne, and now operates really one of the largest public markets in a city anywhere in the U.S. in Detroit. So with that, Dan.
Thank you, Doug, and truly it couldn't have been a better introduction. The urban-rural divide is a thing of the past. Let us pray. For me personally, I grew up in Chicago, Illinois, and like the President, became a devout White Sox fan. But early in my life, my dad, and this is stump the speaker time now, so my dad bought a farm near the Boyle River in Paradise Township, just north of Dow City, which is just west of Denison. And actually, so I got to see life from both rural and urban perspectives, and it really has informed my whole outlook on things. Detroit hosted earlier in May the National Main Streets Conference. We had over 1,500 representatives, mostly from smaller cities around the United States. And I think many of them came figuring, what in the hell are they having a national conference in Detroit for? There can't be any correlation. And what I think they saw was Detroit is the opposite side of the same coin of economic dislocation. It's the opposite coin of scaling up really large systems that don't distribute jobs in a lot of different places. And so and it all gets back to food. Because the proud places that I did a job in Scottsville, Michigan one time as a consultant, and their town slogan was left over from the good old days. They were called Crossroads of the County. And they kind of snickered because, we were in the global age. But regional food systems is a chance to recapture some of that mass and put it back into places that have been kind of abandoned by the global economy. And Detroit, we think, is kind of a poster child for trying to get there a little quicker than other places, because we were left with this historic relic called Eastern Market that was kind of left over from the good old days before everybody built their own food distribution system. Before there were, national retailers that had their regional distribution centers, there was an Eastern Market, and we've been losing wholesale market share steadily since 1930. And we still have a wholesale market, though, and we have a fabulous retail market. We're a great place. 30 to 40,000 reverent Detroiters come every weekend. As many as 50,000 2 weeks ago. Fortunately, it was a traffic nightmare because, courtesy of Secretary of Law, we're engaged in a $24 million infrastructure improvement through the Tiger program. Thank you very much. And we have a unique advantage over other places that go through transportation projects is that parking on weekends is always a crisis at Eastern Market. So having a transportation project, it was just a little more chaotic. But the point is, when it comes to Eastern Market, while we're a great place and while people have in their heart this great connection to the past, we think more about the future of food than just the past. And we're trying to use this lever to build a much more robust regional food system, focusing on those same issues you heard the Regional Development Commission's focusing on: workforce development, entrepreneur development, and better food access. And those are the three things we work on day and night, beyond just running the market, that we think really will provide us the long-term growth to make regional food systems a powerful elixir to drive local economies. We think that the work we're doing around food products, when we took over management of the market from the city of Detroit in 2006, they only allowed the sale of fresh fruits and vegetables, plants and flowers. Today we have more than 125 companies that make food products that want to sell their product at our market. We're working with 80 other food makers that don't even have a place to make their product. We're building a citywide network of shared use kitchens out of mostly kitchens that are already built, mostly financed by the USDA, and schools and churches and civic organizations that are collecting dust. just organizing them and managing them. We have 11 entrepreneurs from the neighborhoods of Detroit, 9 of them women, head of households, people of color, bringing their products to market, because we think, based on research that ICIC has done at Harvard, Michael Porter's Institute for the Competitiveness of Inner Cities, that the food cluster, of all the clusters that they have looked at, is the one that has the widest range of job opportunities from entry level up to advanced level. And so it's about jobs that aren't dead-end jobs. It's about getting people into the workforce. Those are hugely important in rural areas. They're hugely important in Detroit. And so as we look at food access programs, we have been doing that for 5 or 6 years, trying to connect our rural growers. We serve about 250 growers in the market. We've got great interest and surge in urban agriculture. You may have seen some recent press about goats in Detroit. Be happy to entertain questions about that off the record. And there's a lot of smoke and a lot of interest in urban agriculture, but mostly the market still serves rural growers selling to urban customers. And SNAP benefits were one of the leading outposts of public markets in the country. Last year we did, I think, about $600,000 worth of SNAP sales at the market. I think we represent 1% nationally and about 30% in the state of Michigan. We have a great local partner, Fair Food Network, that doubled up food bucks, so another $200,000 of people got extra benefits just to buy Michigan-grown fruits and vegetables. So those programs that you're thinking about, are always sold as a sort of a safety net and helping people get good food, which it does. But we see it puts income directly into the pockets of some of our small and medium-sized farmers that really need that help as well. But we also know that it isn't just about food access. It's about, the food access implies just a supply problem. If we suddenly could airlift in grocery stores, everything would be okay. But there's pretty weak demand after generations of people have been used to buying from their local convenience store. So the work we do around school food, the work we do in trying to work with Detroit Public Schools to change their meal content, as much to improve markets for our growers as to change buying habits of students, so that we can actually create new markets much more robust into the future by households who are helping us address our number one national defense issue, which is our cost of health care. And so up and down, the connections between urban and rural places happen. It's all about relationships. It's all about infrastructure. And it's all about programming to take regional food system, which is probably 2 or 3% of market share, and make it grow to 20 or 30%, so we have a much more robust regional economy. And if those doubters out there, I know all my friends are tiring of hearing this metaphor, but there is no better one that I've found, that if you want to see how the food system can change, simply look at the way we drink beer these days in this country. The only growing part of the American beer economy is craft beers. And I say, as someone who worked his way through University of Illinois, working for Kraft Foods, making Squeeze Parquet and Miracle Whip, it's a long way from Kraft Foods to craft beer.
Great. Thank you, Dan. Appreciate that. We're going to shift regions to look at the Southeast, and we have Melissa Rivers with us from the East Arkansas Planning and Development District to speak about local food economies in the Mississippi Delta region. Melissa has quite a track record of leading organizations on the stability and growth. She's led the development of the Renew East Arkansas program, instituted organizational and new long-term efficiency work there in the district, and has effectively led the East Arkansas region now for a number of years. So,
well, thank you. I appreciate being invited. I really, as Secretary Vilsack, appreciate this initiative because it really does help East Arkansas take it to the next level. And for that reason, I think it's important for me to give you a little bit of background of where we've been over the past 2.5 years and what's led to this. We received a $2.6 million regional sustainability planning grant. We're in the last leg of that. But that really has re-energized East Arkansas. It's given our communities an opportunity to take a unique look at strategic planning. And by that I mean a holistic lens. I come from an economic development background like Chairman Massengill, who is a great partner to our Planning and Development District and to Planning and Development Districts in the Delta region. Thank you. But coming from that perspective to the Planning and Development District perspective really does give you a unique lens. So traditional economic development planning really looks at what kind of businesses can we develop, what are our strengths and weaknesses, and then we go out and get it, right? We're basically on a fishing expedition. This grant really has provided us an opportunity to take a look at strategic planning that incorporates how is our housing stock impacted by the businesses that we're targeting? How is our infrastructure impacted by the businesses that we're targeting? Can we sustain what, as a community, we envision that we can go after? Working with building communities, we've really been able to take 20 plans, 20 communities, 12 of our counties, 8 of our communities, and walk them through the process of basically, where do you envision yourself being in the next 20 years? Do you have the resources to achieve that? Do you have the heart among your community leadership to achieve that? The question really does help them pare back to realistic starting points. And so that's been a great experience of the past 3 years because it's really reinvigorated our communities as to what they can accomplish and where they're headed. I say that to say that that has really evolved how we think as a region. Regional infrastructure planning, it really has initiated a recent Tiger application for planning purposes. We've just gotten a 1,000-job project in our northern counties, 3 counties being really excited to have a new company there. But now we've got a mayor who has 100+ tractor trailers going across his roads that he had not planned for. And there's no money there to help them. There's bridges that need to be taken care of as a result of that. We've got rail overpass, the same things that rural communities deal with regularly. Road, rail, water, air, telecommunication, those are all things that are very important to East Arkansas. This opportunity to plan both as individual communities and as a region has equipped us to look at it realistically, and we appreciate that. We appreciate the folks from Department of Transportation, HUD, and EPA. We've looked at housing. We're actually working with EPA with a technical assistance grant in one of our specific counties to develop a toolkit to assist our communities in addressing dilapidated housing. We're looking at how do we use state recycling grants to reclaim dilapidated properties and make sure that those materials don't make it into the landfill. So that kind of leads us to, we developed a public-private partnership, which Secretary Vilsack, I know that's important to you. We're just finishing up announcing a partnership with the Winthrop Rockefeller Foundation, the Arkansas Community Foundation, as well as Southern Bancorp. And that is to address capacity issues that public money cannot always impact directly. We really do have leadership capacity issues. We have leaders within our region that they have the heart to make change for East Arkansas and take it to that next level. They really don't have the know-how. And so using this money to help us build that capacity, develop these partnerships. One of the things when I was in Memphis last year, speaking with the National Foundation Network, we were talking about how we sit in meetings like this, right? And you listen to really impressive, educated folks, and we sit around the table and we nod our heads, right? And we know we're going to go back to our hotel room and Google what they said. Some point that you think, oh, I need to know more about that. There are community leaders across the country, not just in East Arkansas, that want to know how to lead their communities better. So we are partnering with these private partners to help impact that in our region, reaching traditionally marginalized folks that are not brought to the table traditionally and having them participate in that conversation, developing field guides on how to with our top 10 economic development priorities, which include value-added ag. It includes exactly what we're talking about today. It really has been an evolution. When we began the grant, we thought we need access to healthy foods. How do we help our folks have access to healthy foods? It has evolved into how do we take value-added ag, which is chosen as one of our top 10 priorities, like I said, to a business development opportunity to keep those under 40 folks in our region. We're bleeding 18 to 35-year-old population, so how can we help them stay? How can we leverage those dilapidated properties that are reclaimed into small niche farms that become business development opportunities? How do we help our local leaders right-size their economic development incentive policies and structures to nurture a small business ecosystem? So as you can tell, I'm very excited about this, very passionate about it. We're definitely not as advanced as Dan and the Eastern Market, but I know for sure in the next 20 years, Eastern Arkansas is going to be a top producer in this realm. And I think that's going to be in large part because of the passion of the people, but also our access to Memphis, Tennessee. We're right next to it, as well as access to Little Rock. We look at building our regional economy for local entrepreneurs, but also being access to, I used to work for the Memphis Chamber, and so being part of Memphis's America's Distribution Center, we can get anywhere in the country within 24 hours. So I think we have a lot of opportunity in East Arkansas, and I'm excited to work with our federal partners in making that a realization for our region.
Melissa, thank you very much, and thanks, Dan. I just, listening to you, I'm just wondering why you're not a Tigers fan instead of a White Sox fan. Just looking at the standings recently, I'm just asking. One of the things I hope everyone caught as you listen to the various speakers is the extraordinary reach that this idea has. It has environmental benefits. It has economic benefits. It has workforce development benefits. It has entrepreneurship and small business benefits. It has health benefits. It has the capacity to bring communities together, which leads ultimately to more strategic thought about infrastructure. So there is a significant reach here. And it has been studied that for every dollar that is spent in a local and regional food system, it generates another 63 cents of economic activity. So this is a multiplier. And I hope folks picked up on that. Melissa's point about access to information is precisely the reason why we have the Rural Council, why we're doing this today, so that folks do know that there are tools out there to sort of make it a little bit simpler, make it a little bit easier. Our Know Your Farmer, Know Your Food guidebook, which is on our website at USDA.gov, tremendous asset for folks who want to know what's out there, how can I potentially apply. Today, as we launch this Local Foods, Local Places initiative on the White House website, we're going to have the ability to make application and to get the application to sort of access this technical assistance money that we're launching today. So we're going to try to break down those barriers, try to make it simpler to understand because there are just extraordinary benefits that can accrue if folks embrace this notion. And so really appreciate all of the speakers today, and also appreciate the fact that Secretary Fox not only has studied this issue, but himself has taken recently a tour of rural parts of the country on a bus tour, so he has a very direct awareness of the infrastructure needs and the opportunities that exist and the challenges that are faced in rural America. Certainly appreciate him taking the time to do that.
Thank you. We're going to open it up to the room here in just a moment for folks that might have questions for any of the speakers, panelists that you've heard from so far. Before we do that, we do have some questions that are streaming in from our watch parties that are taking place. I want to address one. This actually includes transportation and food aspects to it, and this is coming from the Tennessee watch parties. They state, our community is currently developing the Sequatchie Valley Scenic Byway and exploring a brand to identify products grown or made in the Sequatchie Valley. Do you see local food branding as a viable strategy to increase agritourism? And what are some other ways that we can draw people to our region to learn about our rich agricultural heritage? Any of our speakers like to take a shot at addressing that question?
Well, let me start by suggesting that it absolutely does make sense to the extent that you can brand to do so. The number one trend in restaurants and grocery stores throughout the United States is locally produced and regionally produced food. It is the number one thing that folks are focused on. So to the extent that you can personalize it and localize it, obviously it creates a sense of pride and connection, and it gives you an opportunity to market effectively.
Okay. Second question, this is coming in from our West Virginia watch party. They state that federal programs and funding have been really helpful and supportive to growing our local food value chain and affecting a huge impact on West Virginia's local foods agriculture, but they need to scale for more impact. Given West Virginia has more small farms than large farms compared to most any other state, what are your recommendations for small-scale aggregation and distribution of specialty crops and meat products? And
Well, Let me take a stab at that as well. I mean, I think, first of all, to familiarize yourself with the Business and Industry Loan Program, because that can provide you a significant loan guarantee that will allow you to create a food hub, which allows you to aggregate. Could also potentially be used to establish a small processing facility. We have the ability to have mobile slaughter facilities that could potentially deal and provide processing opportunities for smaller producers. But I would say getting a full understanding of the programs that exist at USDA. We have a value-added producer grant program that could also help with processing. And for the smaller producers, we even have the ability to extend the growing season in some of the areas of the country where you may not have the kind of weather that you'd like to have for as long a period of time as you'd like. We have conservation resources to provide for tunnel houses that would extend the growing season. So again, familiarizing yourself with the programs we have at USDA, and I suspect that there are probably programs that could also be accessed in some of the other federal agencies as well.
I would just add, before we worry too much about infrastructure, we worry about building the relationships and doing small steps. So, I mean, there's a lot of USDA support for studying co-ops or creating co-ops that I think once you do get a group of people working together and they do one thing, then it's easy to get to do other things. But before, you know, to me, it's just relationships before infrastructure.
Doug? I've spent time with both of these groups, and let me say, both of these groups are incredibly innovative, creative, full of energy, and are going to be figuring out how to take on these issues. The Sequatchie Valley folks have an incredibly beautiful region of Tennessee where they have a great crop, beautiful tomatoes, and they're going to have a great brand. The West Virginia folks have incredible energy, these great small farms, and they're developing the infrastructure to do aggregation throughout the state, and they also are going to be all-stars in the near future.
Great. We'll take one more question from the watch parties, and then again, if folks in the room have a question or comment, just signal with a gesture. This question is really for Melissa and for Dan, asking if you had a magic wand, what advice do you have for the federal government in its support for local food systems? What are the greatest needs that you see out there unmet at this point?
Well, first of all, I wish I did have a magic wand. That would solve a lot. But I can tell you that as much as the benefit of the last two and a half years have been for our region to get together, it really has enabled us to develop relationships within the different federal agencies. It's now, when I am in DC, I make specific appointments with specific folks within the different agencies, and maintaining those relationships has been critical. And so I would encourage the federal agencies to continue that. I think one important area for us has been just the surprise, has been the White House SC2 program. Although that person is placed within Mayor Wharton's office in Memphis, I call Sarah Seeloff all the time and ask her questions and get her to help me. And we've actually been exploring how do we take a look at that in the region, in the rural areas as well. So I would say, again, relationship building is critical.
First of all, I just think the most amazing thing I think that has been done over the last few years is not necessarily the most expensive thing, and that's just Know Your Farmer, Know Your Food, and the garden on the South Lawn. They're changing the narrative about what food is and the importance of food, and as Secretary pointed out, how far-reaching it is. So to me, it would be even greater adherence to that narrative, and looking at that USDA daily recommended, half your diet from fruits and vegetables as sort of the brand at USDA, and how does that align programs across USDA and other federal agencies interested in health? That would be, money's great, there's infrastructure needs, we got all that, but if we can drive consumer demand, it'll solve, let the market help us solve this problem.
Great. Thank you, Dan. Yeah, right there.
I'm Pamela Hess with the Arcadia Center for Sustainable Food and Agriculture. We're here in town. We work in food system distribution, growing, and especially in low-income neighborhoods. I think there's one very important person missing from this discussion, and it's the Health and Human Services. We've sort of had a glancing talk about the health impacts of this, but we're looking at $130 billion a year in health spending completely related to what people eat. It is a piece of building demand. There's some money that we're leaving on the table here, and I hope that you all can take this back and figure out some way to tie it in. The nonprofit hospitals in this country have about an $11 billion fund that they can use in their communities. And it's only just now starting to be talked about using that for improving our food systems and healthy food access and making healthy food more affordable and accessible, which is ultimately what we really need to do here if we're going to change that $130 billion number. So I'm wondering if you guys have talked about that and bringing HHS into this initiative, and if there's some role that they can play in getting nonprofit hospitals on board with this.
In fact, HHS is a really close player on the White House Rural Council. I'd say probably one of our most active and innovative and creative agencies in terms of bringing initiatives to the table. So we will follow up specifically on the point you raised on that use of those dollars and work on that. So.
One of the things that we are attempting to do is to raise the awareness of the need for investment across the board, which is why next month we're going to have, as part of the Rural Council's focus on economic opportunity, sort of a two-day conference here in Washington, D.C., where we're going to encourage folks to understand the opportunities that exist for investment. We're going to bring the foundation world in. We're going to bring the business world in. We're going to bring commercial bank and investment firms in. So this is a great suggestion you've made, and we'll make sure that we follow up on it.
Actually, press it again. Yep.
Is that it?
Mm-hmm.
Hi, I'm Chris Brown with PolicyLink, and it's great to hear all the themes that the panel has raised today across community, job creation, health, outcomes, et cetera, community revitalization. One area that PolicyLink really focuses on is this notion of regional infrastructure, so it was really great to hear some of the points raised around that, as well as healthy food access. And so I wanted to lift up one huge opportunity in front of us through the Healthy Food Financing Initiative, obviously, that has been recently authorized at the Department of Agriculture. We are trying to build this magic wand that we're working currently around building resources. Unfortunately, right now, even though the program has been authorized, we're really having a tough fight around funding the program to really attack all the issues and the themes that were raised here today. So I would just love to hear from either the secretaries or Doug or any of the other folks on the council to hear how any thoughts or plans moving forward.
We have requested in the 2015 budget request that the President submitted to Congress funding for the program that was authorized by the Farm Bill. We're also working with the Treasury Department on the new market tax, new markets credit program, and HHS also has a grant program that we actually have tapped as a result of the Rural Council. So there is work being done in this space, and we have been using our other tools at USDA to try to provide assistance and help in terms of investments. And we are changing the business and industry loan program a little bit. In the past, all of that money had to be invested in rural communities. And we've now basically shifted that to suggest that it could also potentially be invested in urban centers so long as there is a rural link. So if you establish a food processing facility or a food hub or a grocery store that basically has a link to local and regional food production, that may be a place where some of our other programs now can be used for the first time. So it would be nice for Congress to give us the resources because it is definitely a need, and Secretary Fox alluded to it. You all know, and the PolicyLink folks have done great work. We've mapped this out. We know precisely where these deserts are, and they're everywhere.
I will also add that I didn't get deep into the Grow America Act, but folks from rural communities would stand to gain a lot from what we're trying to do with our Grow America Act. One of the most important investments we would purport to make in Grow America is in our freight networks, how you get goods from one place to another. We essentially have 50 freight networks in this country, and more if you include the territories. they're built on the state plans. And what we would do is to put $10 billion directly into freight development, and I think that would have an outsized positive impact on rural communities and farming in particular. There are other pieces of Grow America that are also very vitally important, some safety measures that help with rural America, expansion of broadband using highway dollars potentially. There are several pieces of it, but I would say that from the standpoint of this effort, the freight piece is probably the biggest single chunk of investment that would support what we're talking about here.
Great.
Yeah, coming from West Virginia, thanks, Earl, for highlighting all the innovations that are coming out of West Virginia as well. Really quick, based off of the suggestions that she had talked about earlier for the anchor institutions and nonprofit industry, have y'all looked into any of the FQHC funding streams, of which we're presently developing a model around anchor institutions in Williamson, West Virginia, out of Mingo County? It seems like a potential sustainable funding resource for utilizing for incubating a lot of these, both businesses as well as farmers markets and hubs. So that's.
Great. We'll certainly investigate the fund, and actually, after we're done with the session, I'll make sure that I get your card and get some additional details from you on that as well.
Let me just say, though, that in an effort to try to get more capital invested in small business development, we recently worked with the Farm Credit Administration officials to create an equity fund. In the past, they've only been able to obviously lend out money. They now have a $150 million fund that they are going to invest in small business development in rural areas, and they can actually purchase ownership interest, small ownership interest, which may be another capital source, if you will, for a small business opportunity.
Good. I feel like this side of the room has been dominating. Let's try to go over to this side for a question. Yes, sir.
Hi there. First of all, I'd like to applaud you on what you're doing today. The initiatives are really outstanding, and they address a lot of challenges that we're confronting. Especially great to see ag and transportation in the same room. That's terrific, because that is one of our big challenges. We're from Mississippi, and we have some rather, well, I'd say unique challenges, but I think everybody faces them that's building a local food system, but you got a head start if you started 40 years ago. We really don't have a local food system. We do about $100 million of fruit and vegetables a year, and that's all, and we're an ag state. We import $8.5 billion of food and food inputs into our economy every year, and it's devastating when we have 1.3 million acres of land, cropland, that's not in production right now. And we have incredible poverty, we have a lot of unemployment, and you would think that that system would self-correct. You'd think, well, the market would just fix that, because now you have all this land and you have hunger. We lead the nation again for the 6th year in a row in hunger. So you think that that might fix itself, but there are barriers, there are challenges to that are so extraordinary that it's just not changing on its own. And we're finding that it's not one thing. A lot of the programs that are developed are really looking at, narrow applications. A food hub in and of itself, which is what we're developing in partnership with retail and producers together, partnering on that, that in and of itself is not enough. We really have to look at our system as a whole. So we would just say, keep doing what you're doing and continue to think along this way, but maybe also think about ways to, innovative ways to reward partnerships that are working across sectors to try to develop the system simultaneously. We keep hearing this chicken or egg, it's develop capacity or develop your infrastructure. And our response is, well, we can't do a chicken or egg. We need a couple of chickens, a rooster, and a dozen eggs, in order to make the system work. And without it, the grants are going to come in and then they're going to go away. And the capacity goes away without the infrastructure. Or you get a big beef plant that we had in Mississippi without the product moving into it, and that becomes a big political problem as well.
Well, I think we are attempting to address that in two initiatives. One, which is across the administration, president's designated a series of promise zones. And the idea behind promise zones is that departments would work collaboratively together in designated cities or rural areas, break down the barriers, and try to come up with a comprehensive approach to the economic challenges of an area. At USDA, we have a specific effort that sort of cross-cuts across all of our programs called Strike Force, and it's actually got started in Mississippi. And you may want to visit with the folks at Rural Development in Mississippi, probably already have.
They're
But
outstanding.
you may want to have them reach out to the folks in Georgia, because in Georgia, we basically established essentially a system with 80 minority producers who came collaboratively together to create a market opportunity for one of the large discount stores to provide them fruits and vegetables that are sold. It creates opportunities for those minority farmers. It creates a system, which is what you're talking about, and it uses, because of the Strike Force process, it basically breaks down all of our programs and funnels them consistent with a plan that the folks locally develop. So I would encourage you to take a look at both of those. We'll hopefully be announcing additional promise zones here fairly soon, and that may be an opportunity as well.
I would just add that at DOT, we're somewhat captive to what the local or state vision for infrastructure is. And one of the reasons why I'm excited that we're part of this effort, and this is not the first and it won't be the last effort between DOT, Ag, and other agencies, is that as much as we can provide technical assistance through this initiative, everything we learn about what's happening in our rural communities can inform the next series of policies that we develop. And I'll give you an example of one that I'm encouraging our team to rethink. Our Tiger program's been very successful. It's a hugely successful program. Dan talked about it. But one of the things about Tiger is that if you have the capacity to match the federal dollars, you're at least historically in a stronger position than a community that can't. And in many parts of rural America, the capacity needs exist, but the ability to match doesn't. And so we're trying to think through how to deal with this because we want to have our investments make an impact, but we also don't want to be running away from the places that need our help the most. So, or the projects that can make the most impact. So we're thinking this through, but the bottom line I would say to you is that every time we get more information, more contact, more anecdotes, more experience, it's informing the next thing we do, and this is a great effort to help us do more of that.
You know, one additional thought, which is true for Mississippi, it'd be true for everyone. You know, we have a beginning farmer and rancher development program that provides resources to universities and colleges, and they are also a fairly significant partner, whether it's an historic black college or one of your major state universities. They're getting resources to help create the kinds of system you're talking about. So I would encourage you to, if you haven't already, develop a close linkage with them.
We're applying for that grant on Thursday with Alcorn State University.
Mr. Secretary, can I ask, tell me the group that you're with and what part of Mississippi you're from?
We are actually located in Jackson, but we're partnering with Alcorn and really trying to create a distributed food hub system where we're working with local groups to create food hubs in rural areas that are networked to the central area where really that's where people are going to sell their product is in Jackson because that's where the metropolitan area is. So we have a group of restaurateurs that are coming to the table. We're trying to meet the farmers where they are and try to do some innovative risk sharing for the producers to get involved in the ownership side of the infrastructure.
Got it. Thank you. And that's Trina George, by the way, Mr. Secretary.
Great. We're going to take one more question. I think, Dan, did you have a comment you wanted to make?
Just quickly, I think there's no such thing as a food region. The nuances as you start to build this out is one of our food access programs we hope to complete in the next 6 months is to build a year-round retail facility featuring our Michigan-grown product in season. But many of our families came from Mississippi and Alabama, and you grow stuff out of season, so we're interested in talking to you. If you'll buy some apples, we'll buy some greens.
Good partnerships there.
If you'll grow it, I'll cook it at the restaurant.
Okay. We're going to take one more question.
Great, thank you. My name is Helen Dombalis. I'm with the National Farm to School Network, and we are an information networking and advocacy hub for the Farm to School movement. And I want to applaud the work overall of the Local Foods, Local Places initiative, and thank you specifically. A number of you mentioned the importance of schools in all of this. So Dan, you mentioned Detroit Public Schools and the incredible work that's happening there. Secretary Vilsack, you mentioned the USDA Farm to School team, the grant program, and then the most recent announcement of the Farm to School census data. My question is if, in working as this collaborative rural council, you've talked about the potential to expand what's happening at USDA to other agencies. So Department of Education is certainly a natural fit for that. EPA could certainly bring in the environmental education piece. And I'm even thinking about Health and Human Services, and then also the Department of Interior, who runs our Bureau of Indian Education Schools. You know, we've talked a lot about the three elements, the trifecta, as Dan mentioned, of wins. And for Farm to School, we say it's a win for kids, a win for farmers, and a win for communities. And I think if we could take what we've seen be so effective at USDA and kind of expand that, we could do really well for our children.
That is a great suggestion. I think we are working collaboratively together to try to convince our Congress not to take a step back on new school nutrition standards, which encourage more fruits and vegetable consumption and so forth. But that is an excellent suggestion, and we will certainly add that to the list of things that we take from this meeting as a sort of a to-do list for future meetings. I appreciate that. It's a good suggestion.
Bob, did you want to comment on that as well?
Well, just in general, I think the environmental education component is pretty important. I mean, all these regional and local objectives that we're all sharing here all make for a healthier community in a whole bunch of ways, whether it's the food, whether it's less air pollution because we drive around less, whether it's the well-being of a community with local grown food and the pride that generates. So there's a lot of psychological as well as physical health. But I want to point out that EPA does have a number of programs that are aimed at helping, or that have been aimed at helping local rural communities also, because we often think of things like brownfields as a big city program, but we've been trying to move more and more of those funds into some of the smaller towns so that sites can be prepared in a low-cost way where we can help with grants to get sites ready to be perhaps the local organizing zone, or even be redeveloped for food markets or restaurants even. So there's a lot of opportunity, and this is why I think all of us working together, we're doing a lot of this in Detroit. And so I think that's the reason why having all the agencies together. Again, I apologize for being late.
Quality over quantity, Bob. Excellent remarks, and thank you. Yeah. Well, this unfortunately is the limit we have on time for now, but this dialogue is one that is just beginning and it's going to continue. For those of you also who tuned in using the web streaming, we created, when we did the White House Rural Council, a specific rural affairs at whitehouse.gov as an email box that could continue to get input and ideas and advice and continue those key policy discussions. And I think we also started some interesting possible dialogues here among folks that are in the room, which is a really good thing as well. So we just want to thank you. I think with that, Secretary.
Is that the website? Is that the website that folks could look at to get applications for this technical assistance money we're announcing today?
Yes, is the answer. So the Rural Affairs page, which is on the whitehouse.gov website, and then there's an email address associated with that as well that's really there just in case folks have questions, want to provide feedback to us or comment. That is a direct line into our office here at the White House. So, Mr. Secretary, any closing comments?
Well, just thank everybody for participating. Some really good conversation, great questions, and I guarantee you that we will take your suggestions and your concerns that are expressed here today very seriously. The whole purpose of this is to force and compel and to encourage government agencies to work more collaboratively together. We have a good relationship between the various agencies. I think you saw that today, and we are going to move this forward. This is a very important strategy for rebuilding and revitalizing rural economies across the United States. It is part of a new natural resource economy that we can grow and generate new job opportunities, better farm income, healthier communities, and healthier kids. And at the end of the day, that's certainly worth the time and the effort that we're putting into the Rural Council. So thank you all very much.